Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call the meeting of the Richmond City Council for Monday, July 28th, 2025 to order. May I have a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor, post carried. Madam Clerk, any agenda additions or deletions?
None, Your Worship.
Okay, then we have a presentation. We'll call forward staff on the 2025 Participation Community Challenge Awards.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce Stephanie Myler, Coordinator of Leisure Services, played an instrumental role in planning and leading the city's participation in the 2025 Participation Community Challenge.
Good evening. It is our pleasure to share that the City of Richmond has been named Canada's most active community in the 2025 Participation Community Challenge, a national physical activity and sport initiative that encourages Canadians to get active throughout the month of June. As part of this honor, the city will receive the $100,000 grand prize to support local physical activity and sport initiatives. Richmond has been a strong competitor since the inception of this challenge in 2019. And with the help of our community, 2025 was our strongest year yet. Throughout the month of June, 58 Richmond-based organizations registered for the challenge and offered over 1,000 physical activities, which were attended by over 413,000 participants, an increase of 75 more organizations, 80% more activities, and 60% more participants compared to 2024. We would like to thank many community organizations that contributed to this achievement, including the Community Associations and Societies, the Richmond Olympic Oval, Vancouver Coastal Health, School District Number 38 Richmond, Richmond Chamber of Commerce, and many local sports organizations such as Forever Young, Richmond Minor Lacrosse Association, and Richmond Rapids. We invite you to watch this short video that highlights some of the reasons why Richmond is Canada's most active community.
Congratulations, Richmond. We're proud to be named Canada's most active community in the 2025 Participation Community Challenge. Let's take a look at how we did it.
Now it's your turn.
Thank you every volunteer, participant, and supporter for making this challenge so incredible. As Canada's most active community, now let's keep moving and stay fit and healthy all year long.
Anything further?
Nothing
I just
further.
want to say, first of all, congratulations to all of Richmond for winning this prestigious award. I'm sure that we will find something about sports and fitness that we can dedicate that legacy funding towards. But also to say thanks to the staff who helped, and worked very hard to make this happen. But not only the staff, but there were many community partners, the RCMP, the public library, the school board, many other groups. And also, of course, every group would have volunteers that would help with the organization and help to make it happen. So we've won the provincial award twice since 2019, and now this is the first time we've entered and won the national competition. So congratulations to everybody involved. It's been a great competition, and of course, Richmond wins. Thank you. All right, may I have a motion to resolve any committee of the whole to hear delegations on items on the agenda? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Now we've got Before I go for people with their hands up wanting to speak to us on items on the agenda, I do have three people who have signed up. So we'll go in that order, and then anyone else can have their time. First of all is Barbara Tomasic. Is she here? Barbara? I understand you're going to be delegating on the art strategy. So if you could introduce yourself, and you've got 5 minutes.
Of course, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Barbara Tomasic. I am the Executive Artistic Director at Gateway Theatre here in Richmond. As the Mayor said, I'm here to speak as a delegate in support of the proposed art strategy. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the comprehensive and detailed work of the Planning Committee and the team that put this strategy together. As an arts organization, we so appreciate being part of a city that has the foresight to create a plan that addresses the growth of arts and culture and its impact. This strategy deepens the City of Richmond's commitment to arts and culture and its connection to health and well-being, diversity, the economy, and the safety of the community. And Gateway Theatre is extremely proud to be part of a city that has this kind of plan. And we so look forward to participating in the important work set out by this new art strategy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much. All right, the next speaker is Jane Fernyhough. If Jane could come forward and identify the items and tell us about it.
Mayor Brody, City Councillors, my name is Jane Fernyhough. I live at London Landing, number 5, 13400 Princess Street. And I'm here to speak to item number 19 as Chair of the Richmond Arts Coalition and item number 14 as an affected resident. So with my RAC hat on, the city, and it's on the draft Richmond Arts Strategy. The Richmond Arts Coalition supports the endorsement of the draft Richmond Arts Strategy. We fully endorse the strategic directions and are happy to see building arts leadership and leadership capacity as one of the directions. This is important if the arts are going to continue to build on the opportunities to participate in all forms of arts activities, and the role they play in building a strong, healthy, and resilient community. We are anxiously awaiting the first draft of the Arts Facilities Needs Assessment Report, which will build even more on this. And as RAC, we welcome the opportunity to work with staff on the implementation plan and enhance the role that RAC can play in advancing the strategic directions. And now I'll take my RAC hat off and speak as an affected resident on the South Dyke upgrades preliminary design. My neighbors will be speaking on some of the issues that we have with the design. I want to focus on the actual construction process. Firstly, I must state that we are not opposed to flood mitigation. We do live on the river. But as far as I know, this is the first dike raising that is proposed so close to existing residences. We do not feel that this has been considered in this process. The construction of the proposed design will take place less than 20 meters from our front porches. When this is done, we will look at a fairly steep wall, albeit of some kind of vegetation, and the underside of cars. We wonder if any other type of diking, like flood walls, were considered given the location. We recently went through the upgrades to the dike from number 3 Road to Gilbert and have some experience of what the construction period is like, and that was half a kilometer away. Given this dike is so close to our front doors, it is going to be 2+ years of hell. Hundreds of trucks, pounding, house shaking, dust, relentless noise. As an example, a few years ago when the logs were being cleared from the river's edge, the chipper was placed in the boat launch. The shaking of our houses was so great that when the project manager experienced it, the chipper was immediately moved to Gilbert Beach away from the residences. And for those of you who don't know our area, we have no backyard to retreat to. Our back is a laneway. To that end, regardless of the decisions on the design, I would like to request Council direct staff to work with us on both the timing and scheduling, and if there is anything that can be done to mitigate these construction issues. For instance, perhaps the residential section could be done in the winter, November to February, when doors and windows are closed and gardening is minimal, and to choose appropriate locations for supplies storage. And we would like input into the design of plantings and access points. The access points designed to accommodate kayaks and other watercraft i.e. no switchbacks on the bridges over, and the planting's done to look good year-round with low maintenance. We are also concerned about damage to our houses during construction. At the first open house, it was suggested by staff that they could do an assessment of our foundations and other aspects of the house, like drywall, before construction begins, and again after, to ascertain any damage from the construction, and we would welcome this. I do hope we can come to a satisfactory resolution to some of the issues and concerns we have raised while still keeping our community and our homes safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Jennifer Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Brody and councillors. My name is Jennifer Hamilton. My husband and I have lived in Richmond for 35 years. For the past 24 years, we have made our home at London Landing, number 10, 13400 Princess Street. We chose to live here because our home offers an unobstructed view of the natural beauty of the south arm of the Fraser River. We continue to live here because of the wonderful community that has been created. I will be speaking to item 14 on the agenda, South Dyke Upgrades Preliminary Design. This project will raise the existing dike, which is directly in front of our home, by 1.5 meters or 5 feet. The existing road is only 48 feet or 16 yards away from our front door. I am opposed to this plan for the following reasons. I believe the proposed plan appears to be an overly complicated solution to a temporary problem, with the long-term solution being to realign the dike along Steveston Island. Experts have identified the area of the proposed dike upgrades as at risk. The city has only ever offered one solution, which is to rebuild the existing dike with a raised roadway in its current location. I urge the city to explore alternate options, such as constructing a steel dike wall on the water side or adding riprap to the water side, similar to what has been done along other sections of the dike. I believe these other options could provide the required protection, take less time to construct, cost less, and would have far less negative impact on our community. I understand the existing dike would have to be demolished and rebuilt because it doesn't meet current dike construction guidelines. What will protect our community from storm surges and high tides during the construction period when the existing dike is demolished? If the plan is to use steel plates for protection, then why not just construct a steel dike wall and forget the raising of the road? As Jane mentioned, we're all concerned about the time span of the project. I have watched the infrastructure upgrades along Gilbert Road, as well as the dike upgrades between Gilbert Road and Number 3 Road, both which have extended into multi-year projects. This trend leads me to have grave concerns about the significant disruption to the quality of our lives during a lengthy construction period, as well as the risk of damage to the infrastructure of our homes, including foundations and sewage. I urge the city to have an ongoing open dialogue with affected residents throughout the project, including input on scheduling with regular updates and thorough inspections of our homes before and during construction. I also ask that the city reassess the possibility of connecting the Steveston Island Dike project at London Farm rather than at the weir by the boat launch. If this is done, the dike would only need to be raised by 0.8 meters in front of our homes rather than 1.5 meters. The report states that this isn't feasible due to environmental impacts. However, the project that is being proposed will already have significant environmental impacts. Raising the dike by 1.5 meters would mean that our spectacular open river view will be completely blocked. We will be looking at the side of a steep bank and at the underside of cars as they drive by only 16 yards away from our homes. I feel this is an unacceptable situation as it will greatly affect our enjoyment of our river home, and it will also devalue our property. I urge the city to consider eliminating car traffic from the dike, or at least eliminating through traffic between Number 2 Road and Gilbert Road. Pedestrian and cycling pathways would be enhanced along with overall safety. Speeding has been an issue in this area, even with the newly installed speed bumps, and that would solve the issue. I'm deeply concerned that our 25-year connection to the river and beaches will be completely cut off by this project. The renderings in the report show riprap blocking access to the river and Gilbert Beach. This area is heavily used and enjoyed by the public, so I urge the city to provide access for all modalities to the river in a few key areas. I appreciate the opportunity to voice a few of my concerns about this project, and I look forward to hearing back that these concerns will be taken seriously and considered moving forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Other parties who wish to delegate on items on the agenda? Is there any? Yes, sir, come forward, and then we'll go over here. So please introduce yourself and tell us the item you want to speak on.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'd like to speak to item number 14. And I would consider myself a bit of an expert on this subject because I've walked this route more than 4,000 times since I've lived there. I'm a resident of London Landing, number 7, 13400 Princess Street. I've lived in Richmond for 35 years and lived at this address for the last 14 years. And, pardon me, walk this route almost every day. At this time, I'm not aware that anyone involved in the proposed project in an authority position has visited or spoken with any of the riverfront property owners directly as we were in front of the construction. This is even after speaking with the information people that said it was a good idea and they would pass that along. We've heard from nobody. We've brought several questions forward at the information sessions that have not been answered. One suggestion would be extending the riprap that starts behind the Gilbert pump station and extend it to London Pier along the roadway and parklands. The simple layman information that I've been able to ascertain says that this would provide more than adequate protection for at least the next 30 years at a fraction of the cost. Pardon me. This would save millions from the taxpayer and not impede the residents' water sight lines anywhere near to what is being proposed. Add to that that in 30 years this area will probably be developed into condos or high-rises, and at that time a developer could bear or share in the cost of raising the dike to the proposed height, therefore saving the taxpayer millions of dollars at this time. Questions that I have is why are the east end of Finslow, number 3 Road, and Gilbert pump stations being left as is? If the river floods, the first place that the river will enter will be east of Finslow and flood us from the back. Also, we are at the end of the river where the floodplain, and a simple look at any map shows that the flow of the river will be towards Ladner past Shady Island that protects us. The same will happen in a storm surge. The area is protected by the island, unlike the West Dike that will be inundated should there be a storm surge. The proposal to run the dike from Gilbert Beach to the east end of Shady Island is not only a common sense solution. In my opinion, this proposal is excessive, and the flood mitigation requirements for the area moving forward at this time are much more simple and far less expensive and intrusive than proposed. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks very much. We've got a couple speakers. We'll go to the gentleman on the aisle. Yes, sir. So introduce yourself, tell us the item you want to speak about, and you've got 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this time. My name is Les Lear, and I want to thank the Council for allowing myself and those concerned and speak to regards of item number 14 of today's agenda. I've lived at London Landing for 18 years. Our 20 houses were the first residential development in that area and are located just north of Dyke Road. In that time, standards, rightly so, have advanced since the time that our development's construction. A couple of years ago, the city decided that they would remove and cut up timbers and large logs that accumulated along the north shore of the south arm of the Fraser. They elected to place a wood chipper at the boat launch, which is just south of Dyke Road and opposite our development. When the work commenced, my neighbors and myself found that the amount of vibration from this single piece of equipment was shaking our houses enough that we were concerned about the damage that would ensue if the chipper's operation were to continue in that location. My house faces onto Princess Lane. I personally felt that vibration in my house and agreed with my south-facing neighbor's assessment. Calls were made to the city, and the chipper was initially moved to Gilbert Beach, then finally onto the city's nurseries by the sewage treatment plants. Since the city has recognized that the Dyke Road sub-base material is substandard and requires replacement with proper aggregate and rock material, what will be done to shore up the construction to ensure that rising tides won't compromise the work on that road and will protect the construction and our houses during this planned event? Has there been coordination with the provincial and or federal authorities in the construction which would encroach upon the shoreline due to this? Further, since a single piece of equipment on the opposite side of the road created a vibration issue, what is the plan for the multiple pieces of equipment that will be working in closer proximity to our development over a substantially longer period of time? Has the city determined a safe level of this planned road construction's vibration that won't compromise our house's footings, water lines and sewer lines and framing? I can only presume that the base material at which our houses were built upon were close to the level to which the Dyke Road is built upon. Finally, I've written to the city with my issues both at the open house that the city held opposite and to the, sorry, my apologies. And to the city's website, to which I've not received response to either. So anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Other gentlemen? Anybody else wanting to delegate on items on the agenda? Anyone else? Okay, so this will be our last delegation. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Robert James. I'm a resident of London Landing. I have lived in the location currently for 24 years. Prior to that, I lived in another area of Richmond. I have just several questions that I have a concern regarding item number 14, the Dyke Road upgrade. How old is the current dike that is currently below Dyke Road? What is the dike standards that the dike was built to at that time, if any? Have core samples been taken to determine the structural integrity of the existing dike? What plans are in place if the dike needs to be rebuilt during an abnormal spring freshet, king tide, or storm surge? When will the pump stations at 3 Road and Gilbert Road be upgraded? How many truckloads of dike building material will be needed to be removed and replaced during construction? Plans to use steel, sheet plate, retaining wall, bin walls, and riprap that would be required to complete the dike project. And why has the Steveston Island dike plan been redrawn to move the east gate for the water entrance from the south-facing elevation? That is all of the questions that I have at this time. Thank you.
Is this a question of staff? Okay, we're going to take this off the consent agenda and we'll deal with it as a separate item so then we can ask staff whatever questions we may have. Okay, no other delegations? Okay. Is it seconded? All those in favor, opposed, carried. So we're going to take that item 14 off the consent agenda so we can have a more extensive discussion about it because a number of issues have been raised that we need to talk about. So for the consent agenda, we have the receipt of committee minutes, Minaroo Park Vision Plan Update, the renewed scope of work, process and next steps, the Morey Bridge Replacement Planning Study Update, the referral response to the establishment of the low-end market rental parking, tenant asset, and income exceedance policy, housing priorities grant program allocation, The award of the contract for the provision of automated building code and zoning review software. The ICBC City of Richmond Road Improvement Program update. There's a couple contracts. We've got the dog waste collection pilot summary and proposed expansion, then contracts for the provision of hydrovac services, as well as the supply and delivery of water meters and water meter heads. Then we have the Railway Greenway solar lighting options, and finally the draft Richmond Arts Strategy 2025 to 2030. May I have a motion to move those by general consent? That's moved and seconded. We've got some speakers. Councillor McNulty.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of matters I want to highlight. Number one was the Minaroo Park Vision Plan. Given that Minaroo is our premier park and our main park in Richmond, it's almost like a central park in New York and other cities, and a neighborhood park, and I think we're going in the right direction to look at the vision of it and given the diversity of activities within it and how it fits right into the city center. So I'm looking forward to see that moving along. Next item, Your Worship, is our Housing Priorities Grant Program, where we're putting, we've received monies from the federal government, and we're putting monies back into various developments so we can have rental housing and low-income housing and mixed-use housing within Richmond. And we're adding some things back to a number of developments to help developers move along to provide for our people here in Richmond. I'm also going to support everything else on the agenda in terms of what Westminster Highway Traffic, a note to Hamilton, I think others. We are doing traffic calming. Stop signs are put in the appropriate place, and a flashing light will go at River Road and Westminster Highway. And I want to thank Lloyd B. and staff and our head of Public Works for saying at the last meeting, we can have it done tomorrow. Well, I couldn't get out there fast enough because it was already up. I thought that would be in the afternoon, it would be up. I understand it was in the morning. But anyhow, thank you very much on behalf of the people of Hamilton and also the safety of that community. Your Worship, I'd like to ask our manager in terms of the dog waste collection, what are we actually doing on that? Come forward and explain to the off-leash people. If we get a complaint at an off-leash park or a park, it's always, if it isn't the snow geese affluent, it's the dogs and where people don't pick up. So maybe you could just explain what we're actually doing, and I'm going to be supporting that project.
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty. So the recommended option will put or install dedicated dog waste bins at all city-owned off-leash dog areas. The waste will be collected by a contractor. It will be debagged. The waste will be sent through the wastewater treatment plant, and the plastics will be disposed in landfill. It's estimated that in an annual year, it will divert 13,500 kilograms of waste from landfill. Also like to note that the intention for the recommendation would be to bring on new city off-leash dog parks as they are created by the city.
So and it will save us a lot of money as well. Thank you very much for that. And the last item, Your Worship, really thank staff about the Railway Greenway solar options and putting it in 2 phases. I'll be supporting that. I think it's the way to go, and appreciate everything else on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll speak on a number of the consent agenda items, of which I'll be in support of all of them. Just to touch on a few that were recently mentioned. Item number 7, the Minaroo Park Vision Plan update. It's a unique park. There's also a number of unique areas that are being potentially addressed in this new vision update. Things such as the high demand for parking and potential looking into parkade structures, what to do with the old pool site, the upgrade to the playground, and also looking into needs assessment of sports like cricket that currently use the site. Item number 8, Moray Bridge replacement planning. Very thankful that staff came or have been got early word that this was potentially going to be a major project having lots of disastrous consequences for Richmond Road network. So they've taken a very educated approach to write a pretty serious set of comments that hopefully the province takes into consideration, as it is outside of our jurisdiction to do this project. As its Ministry of Transportation and Transit. And actually, one of the things that I think is an early win is they've already pulled back on their idea to close the number 4 road exit with southbound traffic on Highway 99. Item number 9, it's the one in regards to the low-end market rental parking tenant income exceedance policy. That part of it I'll speak to is there was no recorded opposition in regards to charging or allowing charges to be laid per month for parking on site at those lemur units. So 100 per month, unless it's outside the traffic service area, then it would be 75 per month. I just want to touch on a few more here. Item number 12, that's ICBC City Richmond Road Improvement Program update. That's over $10 million worth of projects that the city is sharing the cost with ICBC. We could be getting a whole lot more from ICBC in the province to do these types of improvements, but if you want to look at the list on page 142, 143, you can see a number of important improvements. I'll echo Councillor McNulty on the Westminster Highway traffic calming. It was an item that we were looking at putting delineators in the middle of Westminster Highway at the S-curve out in Hamilton area, but we came out of that meeting with a whole bunch of additional success stories. So like we heard, the next day there was 4 stop signs up to go right across from the elementary school where there's a lot of construction happening and it's very dangerous. So that's a great improvement. And then looking into the potential for improvements along River Road and Westminster Highway intersection area. I'm almost done here. Dog waste collection. Yes, it might save us money, but it's also going to cost us some money. So to collect these many kilograms of dog waste, it actually costs almost a perfect ratio of $1 per 1 kilogram of dog waste. So it's great to hear that the pilot was so successful and that we're going to cover all of our off-leash sites. There was an option here where we could ask to expand it even further to another 14 sites that are not dog off-leash parks but are frequented by dogs. And there's a potential for that to be added later on as we get more success from this project. And I guess finally, last 2 items. Number 18, Railway Greenway solar lighting options. I really value the work that council and staff have done on this one, as it's been kind of a back and forth, and thankful to the public who raised the concerns of the dark areas of the Railway Greenway. But instead of fully illuminating it and taking away the value of the greenway part of it, we're going with solar lighting options in those most needed areas. And it's such great time as the United Nations just 6 days ago said that green energy has passed this positive tipping point. It's going to become cheaper. And with what's going on in the States and how they've just cut a bunch of federal energy programs, it should be even a better win for Canadian solar projects like this one here in Richmond. And finally, item 19, draft Richmond Arts Strategy. We heard some great advocates from the public speak. Unfortunately, things didn't turn out so well in Vancouver this week, where there was 50 people or organizations advocating for something similar to what is before us today, the art strategy going forward. But in the turn of events, that council kind of referred it back and is planning to not fund things as much. So it's not the way we're going about it here in Richmond. We're adding new strategic components to it, such as build arts and cultural leadership. So I'm really positive the work that has gone into it and what will come. Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, I'll just be commenting on 3 things. Briefly, and the first one is number 12, the ICBC Richmond Road Safety Improvement Program. Of course, that fits in with our strategic plan for the city, and it's obviously a priority for every neighborhood in Richmond. Road safety is a major issue. Just a couple things. It's been around for about 35 years, this program. I believe it started in 1990 with ICBC, and since then there's been over 8,300 projects in the province, and there's been over $225 million invested in some of the projects, and that includes Richmond. So things like improving traffic signals at intersections, crosswalks, lighting, all of that. And it's a very good program because what it does is it improves traffic safety, road safety, and that's a priority for everybody. So it's an excellent program. The next comment is also on the Railway Greenway, and that's item number 18. And just very briefly, as Councillor Wolf pointed out, there has been a lot of work done on it. It's been back and forth, but I'm very pleased with the outcome. There's some very key locations along the Greenway. You don't want to light the whole thing up, but there are some very key locations where it is a little dark, and so that also is a public safety issue for people, and I think we reached a really good compromise. The last comment I'll make through the chair is item number 19, and that's the Art Strategy 2025 to 2030. There's been many successes in this program, and usually everybody is unanimous in praising those. Things like the mural program, very popular, the Sea to Sky art piece at Cook and Three Road at the Celtic Building, the Media Lab in the new annex has been very successful, and the annex reopening itself has been really positive. So I think this strategy builds on what's done before, and that will continue to be successful, and the arts will continue to thrive in Richmond. And with that, Your Worship, I'll be supporting everything on the consent agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll call the question then on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So we pulled the item 14 off the consent agenda. The chair is not here, so I'll just read this out. The recommendation from the Public Works and Transportation Committee is that the preliminary design presented in the staff report titled South Dyke Upgrades Preliminary Design 6080 Dyke Road to Gilbert Road, dated June 18th, 2025, from the Director of Engineering be approved for detailed design to be brought forward for construction funding, and I would so move to get it on the floor anyway. Now, I think we should ask staff to come out to the tables so we can, because there's going to be lots of questions, lots and lots of questions. All right, now quite a number of the councillors are going to be asking questions, but let me start it off by, I know you've done a lot of work, and you've done a lot of work with the residents and whatever, but one of the main complaints we've heard tonight is that the positions of the residents haven't been heard, and there haven't been the alternatives presented that might make this more palatable in a difficult situation, recognizing that we need flood protection. So let's start there, and we'll have some more specific questions.
To Your Worship, I guess in terms of other alternatives, there was mention of a sheet pile wall and also just doing riprap improvements. Our preference is to do an earth core dike. This is sort of in line with our dike master plans that have been approved by council. This gives us a very good, robust, resilient dike. Hard structures such as sheet pile walls are difficult to raise in the future. They're also possibly susceptible to differential settlement. And also, again, the earth core dikes are easier to repair should there be a problem.
Well, you say that the earth core dike is your preference, but there obviously have to be compromises made here. I'm not saying that's one, but what else could you do to mitigate some of the issues that have been raised by the residents?
To Your Worship, one of the issues here is, excuse me, the elevation as well. One of the comments that was made was that we could just add riprap and so on. That is part of the plan, is to add riprap along the whole section. The main thing that we want to accomplish here is to raise the dike in alignment with the Accelerated Flood Protection Program. As far as the elevation of the road, the preference is to have as wide of a dike as possible because that improves the resiliency of the dike. And if anything does happen, it's just more, it gives an added buffer layer in behind the dike core if there is any issues in the future.
All right, how many times have you met with the residents?
Through Your Worship, through this project, we did 2 public engagement sessions along with a Let's Talk Richmond engagement session.
No. I'm just wondering if we don't have to have extend that quite a bit. Okay, we'll go to other speakers. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll follow up on that. I think it's critical that we meet with the folks down there again. Okay, I think it's important. Following along that line, reading on our page 174, yes, you met. Your first public engagement was back in 23. I don't know what and I saw what we presented, and everybody basically was in favor of supporting upgrades on the Dyke, but they didn't understand the implications of supporting what we're proposing. So, Your Worship, I believe that we need to go back to the folks again. Obviously, a lot of new information to us. It's not in a report that came through tonight. I think we need to look at that and review it. It's important. When we rezoned that area, not everybody here was on council. You were, Your Worship, and I guess I was the only one. We rezoned that to be a neighborhood area. And we spread it out. We put the buffer against the agricultural land. I don't know if you remember that, and the kerfuffle we had on that. Well, we took it, but we did it anyhow. And I think we created a real nice neighborhood. And I think we shouldn't forget that. I think very often, given the people that are on the, we'll call it the extreme south side, we should be looking at their sight lines and what they did, because they orientated all their homes towards what was there, as others did. So, and I think it's pretty good planning that took place down there. And I'm not going to brag about it, but just make a point, because I think people are quite happy. So, Your Worship, I think I'm not going to get in the technicalities of Dyke. You're the experts. You'd have to come back to us what proposals we can do, what modifications we can make, what changes we can make, and how we can, follow our diking program, because we do have a program. Remember, we have a 50-year program that we've got to follow along when we can, and I think the folks would agree to that program to stop any flooding. But at the same time, I think we've got to look at what we've created down in London's Landing. Remember, it was one of the oldest, as a matter of fact, it was landed, if you wish, before Steveston was created in 1890. Thank you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship, and you make good points, and Councillor McNulty makes good points as well. And I understand, you know, the plan, and of course you want to build, your preference is to do the earthen dike. It's what you're planning to do everywhere. But in this case, I mean, and we brought this up even at committee when a few of us asked a question, if we're going to be upgrading the Steveston Island anyway, and that's the main plan, then why do we need to do this extreme dike raising in this area? You know, he explained in order to keep people safe in the interim, because the Steveston Island is going to take some time, several decades, I believe, that we need to do this now. But I think that the residents make a really good point, and so does the other people who have spoken, that, you know, to compromise and look at the sight lines and look at what would be good in this area for now, if the flood walls would be sufficient until the Steveston Island upgrade is done, and that helps everybody be able to enjoy their properties more, and it's just as safe. Sure, it's not the same as the plan we've had for all of the dikes, but since we're going to be doing the large earthen dike on the Steveston Island anyway, then it's going to be overkill in the long run, and we've ruined people's, you know, enjoyment of their homes. Then let's refer this back, and you know, also it sounds like engagement really needs to be stepped up, especially with those residents that wanted to meet, and it sounds like they've made some contact and they haven't been responded to. So everybody's got to get on board and want to be safe and want to be protected, but in a way that everybody can live with. Obviously, it has to be 100% safe. So if we can explore those options with people so we can see everything, then I think that's what we have to do.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we absolutely need to protect Richmond from extreme flooding. We all agree with that. It's just how we go about that, and I think that seems to be part of the problem. So the first question I have for you is with respect to the Steveston Island, what is the date that we look at starting and the date for completion of that? I know it's a very comprehensive project, but what are we looking at?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we don't have a firm timeline on that. Unfortunately, it's fairly complicated. There's going to be many years of consultation with provincial and federal authorities and the Steveston Harbour Authority before we can even start to contemplate a start date.
Decades away?
Conservatively, yes. Yeah, I think best case, it would be a minimum of 10 years if we were trying to really progress a schedule, but it more than likely would be farther out than that.
Okay, thank you. Now, the concept of a steel dike wall, like we can think of the New Orleans flood when the levees, the steel levees that they have when that disaster happened. Would that be something that could be put in there, or you're saying the grounds, Mrs. Sproul, the ground is so unstable we would not be able to do it at that location?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, technically it's possible. However, through our dike master plan for flood protection management strategies and dike master plans, the most resilient structure is an earthen dike, and that's what the council endorsed preference is at this point.
Well, I'm sure the council of the day may have thought that, and I agree. We would want to have some commonality around all of Richmond because we're an island on how we build it. But obviously, we do have a concern here, and I think, as the mayor pointed out, we should be looking at some way that we can reach a consensus here on what can be done. You've heard the complaints that have come forward. I think more of a public engagement, as others have alluded to, would certainly be valuable, so we can all understand that and we can, come to some type of agreement, arrangement on what may work well for Richmond. But, I wish we had the one size fits all, but I don't think that's going to work. Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs?
Thank you, and through the chair, thanks for all the work that's been done. Very important topic again, as we all know. Just one question is, and I guess we'll get to this later, but I hope there's going to be some reassurance and we can depend on the fact that we're going to have some more consultation with the people that have raised some concerns tonight in terms of communication. But I thought some of the points that were raised were reasonable too, like scheduling, house inspections, damage to property, possibly that kind of thing, the vibrations that we heard about from one piece of equipment. So I think that communication piece would be interesting to hear. With the further to Stevenson Island, could you just comment on, I think you were talking about the complexity, and my understanding is it's multi-jurisdictional is one thing. 10 years I think is pretty optimistic actually. And in the end, I don't know if there's certainty that we will be able to do Stevenson Island, but is it certain that we'll be able to do it? It's just a matter of working through the different jurisdictional issues on it?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, right now that is the plan. However, there is much more work that needs to be going into studying it. So that is the staff's target, is to complete the Stevenson Island dike in its currently endorsed alignment. However, we don't. There may be some changes that come in the future.
Sure. From a layperson's point of view, I had some of those same questions about, well, if we're doing that, why would we do the dike there? But another question in relation to that is, if Stevenson Island is done, and you look at some of the diagrams in the plan, the connection to the main dike on the island is kind of at a perpendicular angle from the dike to the end of the island. And some of the earlier concepts were more at an angle, which would take it out further. Can you just comment on some of the reasons why it's so 90-degree in relation to our island?
Yeah. Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, the reason that it's there is that is in alignment with the current weir, the kind of informal pathway that people take to get to Stevenson Island right now. That's the least environmentally obtrusive option to use. In some of the, if we were to extend it farther south, basically pushing the island out to London Farm or to Gilbert, farther to the east, there'd be a much higher environmental impact. You would end up closing off a portion of the river, and in preliminary discussions with DFO and the province, there would be some fairly serious environmental mitigation measures required with some of those other options. With the alignment that the way it is, that also means that the elevation up until you get to that perpendicular point to the east needs to be raised to 4.7. So putting the flood wall up now, it isn't really temporary. It would still need to be up to that higher level.
Okay, and through the chair, just a couple more quick questions. On page 162, it shows a pathway on the north side of of the dike. And that pathway, I think, is where a private pathway, semi-private pathway exists now. So that's the same pathway we're talking about? It's not a new one?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, yes, there's a meandering pathway that works on both private and city property. The intention is to have that remain, but again, we'll work that out, the details out through the design stages.
I mean, just 2 points to clarify for me. When you talk about the west side, west of, I think, the boat launch, and the east side, on the west side, it's being raised 0.8 of a meter to 4.1, and on the west side, it's being raised 1.5 to 4.7. So I take it the dike from Gilbert to Three Road is 4.7, but can you explain why the difference? Like, I would think we'd be raising it the same amount to the same level if we were raising it. Why is it different?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, to the west, it would be in behind the Steveston Island dike. So it's being raised less there because that is the secondary dike elevation. And the reason we need the secondary dike is because in the long term, even with Steveston Island, when the navigation gate is open, it needs to take into account sea level rise. So that's why that secondary dike elevation is there, raising it by 0.8 meters.
Okay, and the last question through you, the chair, is just when we talk about dike walls, there is one at Britannia that was put in, and it's actually, it looks like a little wood fence along where all the historic buildings are. Inside, it's quite high tech, actually. And so what's the initial problem with something like that, even as a temporary measure? Is it seismic activity? What is it?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, Britannia is a little bit unique because it's actually outside of the dike. So the main dike is actually in behind Britannia on the road. So that flood wall is there kind of as a secondary defense just for Britannia. It's technically possible to have a sheet pile wall, but again, the preferred option is really for the ultimate dike to be an earthen dike.
Okay, and I'm done. I'll just make one last comment. I mean, I did note that there are some positives in the report too, many positives. The road is in the same place as far as where it lines up distance-wise. It will be bigger. There are some things like improvements to utilities, washrooms, increased park space, and that kind of thing. So there are some very positive things in there, and I know it's a lot of work. So I'll see what happens with the discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Thank you for all of the information so far. It seems to me in the original dike master plan, we were going to raise all the dikes for 2,100. And then several years ago, previous council, I was a part of it, we opted to do it to 2050, right? To speed up the whole process. But the numbers we were given originally was talking about to keep Richmond safe, if we planned to do it to 2,100, things would be safe and it would work. So are we still on pace with sea level rise for the 2,100 dates, or were we correct in speeding up?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, the current data that we have shows that the sea level rise predictions are a little bit on the low end. However, the sea level rise predictions are on the low end, low to medium end. However, we do not want to slow down because we don't know what's going to happen 10 years down the road with the way that climate changes. It's fairly unpredictable. So the science could change over the next few years. It could accelerate, could slow down. But we feel that our current speed is the appropriate measure.
Okay, because, obviously, everyone's most people's most expensive asset is their home, and most people's most precious thing is their family in that home. So you want to keep that safe. But I'm just wondering, if we were to delay this section a period of time, it's still one of the lower areas in Richmond, though. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and so even if we were on the 2,100 timeline, we would still be trying to get this area higher sooner. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, even if the priority was changed to 2,100, it would only push this around a couple of years either way? Yes. Okay, all right. And a question about the sheet piling and stuff. Doesn't it involve having piles in? Like when they were doing the Gilbert trunk and they were driving piles, that was definitely unpleasant for the people living in that neighborhood too. But I'm wondering if it's similar construction impact on the homes. So while the ultimate, what you're looking at will be less, is the impact on your home during the construction going to be same, worse, different?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, it would be different. You're correct. The pile driving depends on the methodology that they use. If you use a vibratory hammer like they were using on Gilbert Trunk, that could be worse than compaction equipment for earthworks. Without doing the actual measurements, it's hard to say, but yes, there would definitely be different types of impacts with sheet pile installation.
Okay, because like I think if we do go for more consultation, I think a clear understanding of the different processes and what that actually means, because if everyone fights and gets something different, and then they realize that the impact is far greater or worse or longer, that they might make a different decision. So I think as much information as possible on the construction styles would be helpful if we go to further consultation. Thank you.
Councillor Glanders.
Oh, thanks. I just have a question that I didn't ask. A number of the speakers mentioned the vibration issue that occurred with the chipper that was there for the other issue. In the plan, the construction plan, if it were to go ahead, how will this equipment differ from the chipper if we know that vibration in the area was so sensitive?
Through the chair to Councillor Yolanders. So this type of construction would involve heavy equipment such as excavators, dozers, compactors. The chipper was sort of a stationary machine intended to grind up larger logs into small chips. But again, that was fairly noisy and did create some vibration.
So you think the chipper was much more?
It's likely in a similar fashion, and it all depends on what the contractor would be using for machinery and size of machinery they would use that they would deem appropriately for this construction. Would
the vibration be considered as an issue in deciding which contractor to use or what you instruct them to do?
Certainly through, again, in selecting our contractors and working with our contractors, we can find ways to hopefully mitigate some of the construction impacts.
Okay, just one more question. A few people mentioned access points as well. When you had the public consultations, it sounds like people don't know where they're going to be able to access to launch boats and all the things that they need. Was that included in the consultation, or are there access points that the communities agreed to?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Galanders, yes, the access points to Gilbert Beach, the boat launch would be still maintained through this project.
Thanks.
Councillor Rao.
Yeah, Your Worship, I definitely feel that we should have further consultation with the public. Well, the issues being raised today actually were not new. If you go to CNCL page 180, I mean, those concerns already expressed in the report. However, having the residents coming to us, speaking to us face to face, I think it gives us very different, this gives me a very different understanding of this situation. So I wish that we can refer this back to staff and to further the consultation so that solutions can be satisfactory both to us and also to the residents in the area.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just two questions. I think it was brought up, one of the delegates, that the city be tasked with doing an assessment of the home status ahead of work. Has anything like that been done before, where our city, either our staff or our contractors, assess a building, status of it, quality, cracks, lengths of the cracks maybe, and then check it again afterwards? Has that at all been done in the history of Richmond?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Wolf, yes, there have been other construction projects where we might do surveys, photos, get a pre-inspection and a post-inspection, or also inspection during construction.
Would any of them have been during Dyke work?
Currently, we had not done it during Dyke work, but we have done it through pump stations and other construction projects.
Great, thanks. And then I've heard some discussion around the table here about referring this back. I'm curious what staff's take is on doing both, so keeping it parallel to the schedule that you've already planned, and maybe have contractors and fill accounted for, and also increasing the consultation with the public and doing some of these assessments and some of the other things that were brought up. Is that possible to do both?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, through Your Worship to Councillor Wolf, yes, certainly we could progress both of those along at the same time concurrently.
Okay, I guess my last question then, through Your Worship, if not this area, what is the next priority or area or Dyke work in the hopper coming next for the city?
Currently, we have some other Dyke works along the south side between number 4 and 5 Road. and on the North Dyke around number 2 road to Linus Lane.
Okay, so some also do have residents at those locations. Okay, thank you.
All right. So my suggestion is that we would refer this back. So I'd make a motion that we refer this back to do a number of things. First of all, to have our staff meet further with the residents. And secondly, for a review of the options that are available. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. That brings us to the 3 items that have been taken off the consent agenda because there was not a unanimous vote at committee. The first one is number 20, the amendments to the consolidated fees bylaw. This is all from the General Purposes Committee. And the recommendation is that the consolidated fees bylaw 8636 amendment bylaw 10694 be introduced and given first, second, and third reading, and I would so move. Second. So that's moved and seconded. What this does, it basically, if you ask about our parking rates right now, it's quoted as X dollars plus taxes or other charges. And so it's going to be changed so that it will be X dollars will include the taxes. Now, there will be increases to be sure. As an example, the Bowling Green Road, it would go from a total of $3.50 an hour, including the tax, base rate, plus the taxes, brings it up to $4.32, as I understand, and that would go up to $4.75. So that's the kind of increase that we're talking about. Mention has been made of the TransLink tax under the latest investment plan. The TransLink parking tax has gone up from 24% to 29%. However, all of what I'm talking about is off-street lots. So we're only talking about 5 lots in Richmond that we're managing. So I'll support it. Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. And CNCL 266 shows the city off-street lots that we're talking about. And I wouldn't have any issue with the first 4. We had a lengthy discussion about the McDonald Road boat launch being included in this. The only boat launch that we have, and to park your trailer there is going to be $25.50 plus the taxes of $7.70, so it's going to be $33.20 for the day. And I just would like, if we could separate this out, I propose an amendment that it could read the consolidated fees bylaw number 8636 amendment bylaw number 10694 be introduced and given first, second, and third reading with the exception of 3500 McDonald Road, which could be referred back.
I'm going to ask staff whether that can be separated out in that way. My offhand thought is that we have a bylaw and either we take the bylaw or we leave it, but can we separate it out in that way, Mr. Corrado?
To your worship, if that portion of the bylaw were separated out, it would require a new consolidated fees bylaw amendment, and then it would potentially include language such as McDonald Beach, the fee for both the per day, subsequent days, and then annual permit would be inclusive of taxes. That's how that amendment would be introduced, whereas the other lots that are identified in the report would remain with plus additional taxes as the language included on that table.
So really, in practical terms, if we don't like some part of this, refer the whole thing back for another look.
To your worship, there could be a referral back for the entirety of it, or there could be a referral back for a specific, there could be an amendment that's introduced as well to a specific line item.
I had understood you to just say that wasn't practical. Not so.
To your worship, in terms of the practicality, the existing rates are consistent with what other cities have.
I'm not asking for that. I'm asking whether it's practical to hive off McDonald Road or any other part of this and refer it back and pass the rest of it.
To your worship, I think that it could be done. That could be possible, yes.
Point of order, your worship. On, if you look at the fifth item that I pointed out there was that little typo that Councillor Liu pointed out at committee where it just shows the combined taxes at the end of 770. It doesn't show the actual total. So it's almost as though it's being presented as it could be inclusive of the tax anyway. So if we could just point out with the McDonald Beach being inclusive of tax, as Mr. Corrado said, and then it could be written that way.
Mr. Arachi. Yes. Go, just a minute, where are you here? Go ahead.
Yes, your worship. If I might add, it would be my recommendation as the general manager that the amendments recommended proceed and that the McDonald Beach be hived off if that is council's desire, not that the whole thing be referred back.
All right, so it would be wording excluding McDonald Beach, and having a referral on that.
Correct.
All right. I think we've got our answer.
Through the mayor, or through your worship, we aren't changing what the wording is referring to McDonald Beach in this bylaw amendment. We're just changing the portion of the table in the box above it. So if you are wanting to make a change to the fee for McDonald Beach, I think that would be a new referral to staff.
That's what your boss just told us. We can hive it off and refer it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. I'll just highlight a couple things. There is no bus service to McDonald Beach. Currently, there's a 6-month pilot shuttle that's provided from Metro Vancouver. I didn't get to further comment on this at committee. We were a pretty tight timeline. But that bus or shuttle, you can't take a boat on it. You also can't take a dog on it to the dog beach there. So regardless, the funding of increasing the taxes to TransLink for this service, which some are Richmond residents, some are not. I'm actually pleased that this could potentially be referred, just this one aspect of it, because I would also like us to look at providing differences to the cost for Richmond residents, as this is potentially one of the only public boat launches, as we just discussed the last item. One of the other boat launch is going to have some extensive work potentially happening to it. And I also just wanted to counter some of the comments that were made at committee after I had spoken, saying that this is about turnover at McDonald Beach. I kind of challenge that, because when people go through the work of prepping all their stuff, bringing it to a boat launch, putting the boat in the water, they're not really going to be like, oh, it's going to cost too much, you better go back. If they're out there for the day or whatever, they're out there. So I don't think turnover is really the reason behind this. I think really we need to provide this service to our residents and people in the area, and I think it should be exclusive to the TransLink increase that these other 4 sites should be facing. Thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. I want you to just pay attention to financial impact, because I raised this in committee and I was opposed to this. At the end of the day, we're talking about $50,000, correct? Collected, total.
Through your worship, to Councillor Heed, the estimated amount would be about $67,000, and the portion thereof for the revenue for McDonald Beach would be significant, as there's quite a bit of revenue that's collected from that lot there. That revenue could be as much as $22,800.
Okay, so I'm sensing that is going to be hived off and it's going to go to referral, McDonald Beach. So when we look at what's remaining there, all of that money that is taken in on the increase goes to TransLink, correct? None of it goes to Richmond?
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, yes, that's correct. All of that money is then remitted back to TransLink.
So when we look at the financial impact, could you just explain to me what we mean by absorbed? You're saying this on 267, rather than being absorbed by the city.
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, currently the city and the bylaw department are incurring the deficit of that tax that's being remitted. It's being paid to TransLink, but currently it's coming out of overall revenue. The additional cost would be to cover the tax, and that portion would go to TransLink.
So where does the deficit come from?
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, the deficit would come out of the revenue which pays for staff and other operating costs.
Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's what I was going to ask. I was going to say that essentially if we're remitting a certain amount of tax to TransLink, and so whether or not if we don't increase our the price of it, then we end up reducing our revenue portion of that so that we can remit the full amount to TransLink into the province.
Through your worship, Councillor Liu, that's correct.
Okay, so, it's interesting to me that we would worry, pick one group over the other, say. So people are parking their car for various different reasons. They're going to work, they're going to shop in the shops, they're going to their exercise classes, whatever else. And we're not talking about trying to subsidize them anymore to do their activity versus people who are going boating and dog walking or whatever they're doing. So I think it's fair if it goes up for everyone. This isn't a tax that we added on to anybody. This is just a tax that we're passing on to the end user.
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, as well as that between the last report and now, we've had time to really drill down even further. A number of the usage of that lot is from non-Richmond residents. So there is a bifurcation of costs for non-Richmond residents. The cost of that permit is $165 versus for Richmond residents, it's $110. $39,000 of that overall $76,000 that comes from McDonald Beach comes from non-Richmond residents. So from that, you can infer that the most of the usage comes from non-Richmond residents. And we see a peak in usage around such festivals as the Festival of Light, because it's a good launch point to get to Vancouver.
Okay. So as much as, we're cognizant of, people's income and everything else, who are we doing the favor to? You're suggesting that if we were to change the structure, we'd be doing the favor to not Richmond residents who are utilizing our services. Thank you.
All right. It sounds like, Councillor Galanders, I think you've spoken, haven't you? It sounds like people want to refer this McDonald Road back. So why don't someone want to move that? No. It's on the floor already. Okay. So Councillor Galanders has moved the referral to hive off the McDonald Road parking situation from the bylaw, and then we'll get to it at some later point. So that's moved. Is it seconded? Okay, so the referral is moved and seconded, and so we are on the referral only. Merits of referral, Councillor Galanders.
Yeah, I just want to speak to that, and Councillor Liu makes a good point, and it would come out of our fees, but I think it's worth a look because it is such a specialized thing that we've got there as a boat launch, and I would just like in the referral to compare to what other boat launches around the Lower Mainland are charging for moorage, just so that we know we're in line, and if it comes back saying we're in line, then we can go ahead and put it through, but let's just have a look at it. Doesn't mean we're not going to get that tax back or keep that fee, but if we take it out right now, then it sounds like we can have consensus on moving all the others, and then we can just have a closer look at that one. I don't see the harm in that.
All right. So on the referral of the McDonald Road, all those in favor? Those opposed? So that's carried with Councillors McNulty and Liu opposed. And so on the main motion with that taken out of there, McDonald Road, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. The next item is establishing a housing authority. And And the General Purposes Committee recommendation is that options and opportunities to establish a housing authority or other housing structure be brought forward for council consideration on a case-by-case basis, considering the details presented in the report titled, and then that's the staff report, and I would so move. Moved and seconded. And this can, I think, can simply be boiled down to the fact that with the housing situation, what it is today, the city is getting involved in more and more housing projects. And the question that constantly is raised is, what is the appropriate vehicle? And so under this motion, we talk about a housing authority or another housing structure. Let's take a look at it and see what works for us. And the idea is that staff will get an appropriate initiative, bring it forward, and as part of that initiative as to what we're doing with the property, we can talk about the vehicle as well. So I'm going to support the recommendation. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I appreciate the intent of this. I know some communities have done it and they've been able to do it successfully. Places like Whistler, where they're doing it in greenfield. So they're building housing where previously there was nothing. What we're looking at is we're going to be building housing where there was previously homes. So we're going to be the developer, essentially, if we become the housing authority. And we're the one that's going to come into your neighborhood and tell you that you're going to have 5 stories. Sure, you can have a public hearing and come and tell us that you don't want it there, but we'll just go ahead and do it anyway because we're the applicant. And there you go. You have no recourse as a community. I don't think we should be a residential landlord. I don't think we should get in the business of that. I think the process we have now where we have a housing office is a good plan and a good process that we're using. I think that using not-for-profits to run the housing and to facilitate it, I think it's been working well up till now, and I think it works well. And I think we would be held to a different standard of care. I think we're going to have trouble being able to restrict it to Richmond residents. We're going to be challenged. Someone will take us to court because we have big pockets. They can take us to court. Someone will sign up from Timbuktu and decide they want to come and live in Richmond affordable housing, and there will be nothing we can do about it. Right now, it can go through and it gets managed by a not-for-profit, and people have to apply and go through some application process, and it's not under the same scrutiny. And I think this is going to open us up to a lot more problems and not a lot more solutions.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to make a couple of points in disagreement and I'm going to take a contrarian point from Councillor Liu on this. Let me tell you, our priority needs to be Richmond residents. And if there's going to be a court challenge because someone from Smithers, BC or Prince George wants to come and live in one of our units and we're looking to have someone in Richmond live in that unit, let it be it. I'm willing to take that on, and Mr. Arachi, our city solicitor, I'm sure would be actively involved in that, because if we're utilizing our resources, whether it's a land trust or something of that nature, and we're applying to various pots for money to build, we're building it for the people in Richmond, and I think we can't lose sight of that. The other thing is, my position on this is, even if it's us that are putting the application forward or whatever, there's going to be public consultation. There absolutely. So this fear that we're going to come in and ram it down your throat with no public consultation, I think is just a bunch of fear mongering. I'm certainly looking forward to having some type of structure, as the mayor alluded to, and the vehicle to make sure we're delivering housing here in Richmond for so many diverse groups is certainly what we should be looking at as a council. So I just want to go on record as saying I'm definitely for a housing structure of some sort. I wouldn't be looking, or supportive, I should say, as a independent corp here, but something of that nature, a structure, would be appropriate. Thank you.
For me, ultimately, it's going to come down to the investment that we have to make in the structure itself. And some of the ways we could organize it could be quite costly. We have to look to the pros and the cons of that. We also have to look to the control that the council has over the situation and staff for that matter. I also want to say that to this point, I think that we've made real progress and have done really good work under the leadership of the housing office. And so the idea that that would be the structure to put it under the housing office, to me, is something that's at least possible. And so we have to see the actual application to see what is feasible under the circumstances. So I'm going to be supporting this recommendation. All those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried with Councillor Liu opposed. And the final item that is off the consent agenda is about the works yard. Many will know that we have a very large infrastructure project to replace and upgrade the works yard. So the Council General Purposes Committee has recommended that the program totaling approximately 400,000 square feet in building form be approved as outlined in the report, that in order to reduce the overall project schedule and manage cost escalations, the workshop program and other elements be added to the scope of work for phase 1, and a capital submission for the workshop replacement enabling works in phase 1 capital project scope change and budget increase of $74 million in 2025 dollars be endorsed for council's consideration as part of the 2026 budget process. And finally, that staff begin the planning process for the balance of the unallocated lands as outlined in the report, which is a staff report that we have. And I would so move. So that's moved and seconded. As I say, we are talking about the replacement of the workshop, but also allowing for expansion and to completely upgrade it. And this is a very, very large project, probably the largest that the city has really ever undertaking. And so what we have done in order to structure the situation and to get good advice on what we need and what we want and how we can do it, because we've got the added feature that we have a work yard that can't stop working, and we also have to reorganize it in some way. So we've got an oversight committee that's helping us look at it, and we're looking at everything from the contingencies to the efficiencies to the projected program, the funding, the unallocated land, the design, the escalation, and many, many other factors. As I say, it's very, very complicated. And so I will be supporting this resolution. Anybody want to speak to it? Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with Councillor Liu opposed. Brings us to public announcements and events. Okay, first of all, we have an announcement about the forensic audit on the gift card situation, which you probably read about in the media. In April of this year, the city engaged an independent external auditor to undertake a forensic audit of gift cards purchased in 2022, 2023, and 2024. That forensic audit report has been completed and forwarded to the RCMP for investigation. Because the contents may be relevant to a police investigation, no further details can be shared at this time. Then we move to Pride Week. Today marks the start of Pride Week in the city. From July 28th until August 3rd, a variety of free interactive events and exhibitions are in place throughout the city to celebrate Pride in our community. The theme for this year's Pride Week is Pride Lives Here, and we encourage everyone to reinforce Richmond as a welcoming, inclusive city. So if you want more information, go to our website /Pride. Then we have the Garlic Festival on August Saturday, August 16th, is the 15th Annual Garlic Festival at Terra Nova Rural Park. The festival is a celebration of all things garlic and features various garlic-inspired food and treats, live music, and birds of prey flying demonstrations. Presented in partnership with the Sharing Farm, this all ages friendly event runs from 10 o'clock in the morning to 3 p.m. So if you want details, go to sharingfarm.ca/garlic fest. And while that sounds like kind of a unique event, if I can say, I can tell you, having been to a number of them, it's a really good event. And I guarantee if you go there for that event, you will find it very interesting. And it's great people who are there and great people who are organizing it. Then we have the Richmond Maritime Festival. Mark your calendars. The 22nd Richmond Maritime Festival takes place at the Britannia Shipyards, August 23rd and 24th. One of the region's most popular summertime events, the festival draws tens of thousands of visitors annually to Steveston. It celebrates our maritime heritage with various free activities, live music, artists, food truck, and a display of beautifully restored wooden boats and ships. So if you want more information, go to richmondmaritimefestival.ca. And just a couple more. We have City Hall closures. While City Hall and civic services remain open throughout the summer, a reminder, we will be closed for 2 upcoming statutory holidays. Firstly, Monday, August 5th is BC Day. Monday, September 1st is Labor Day. A range of online services will be available on those days as well as 24/7 through the My Richmond app or the city website. And then a reminder of the next council meeting. There are no council meetings scheduled for August. The next council meeting takes place on Monday, September 8th at 7 p.m. here in City Council chambers. So on behalf of City Council, we wish everyone a safe, happy, and healthy summer. Madam Clerk, bylaws for adoption.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 5 bylaws for final adoption with no noted opposition.
Move all 5.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Development Permit Panel.
Thank you. There are 3 recommendations for council. Recommendation 1, that the minutes of the Development Permit Panel meeting held on July 16, 2025, and the chair's reports for the Development Permit Panel meetings held on September 27, 2023, January 17, 2024, and July 16, 2025 be received for information. Recommendation 2, that the recommendations of the panel to authorize the issuance of a development permit for the property located at 10408 Dennis Crescent, a development permit for the property at 13888 Wireless Way, and a development variance permit for the property located at 17720 River Road be endorsed and the permit so issued. And recommendation 3, that the recommendation of the panel to authorize the cancellation of a development permit for the property at 6071 Azure Road be endorsed and the permit be released from title.
Is it moved?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Now may I have a motion to resolve in the Committee of the Whole to hear delegations on non-agenda items? All those in favor, opposed, carried. So we have 3 such delegations. First of all, we'll turn to Linda Hicks and Veronica Armstrong from the Richmond Singers. If you want to come forward. Please have a seat. Introduce yourself. You've got 5 minutes.
Mayor Malcolm Brody, councillors, city staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm here with my singing sisters representing the Richmond Singers and the Richmond Singers Ensemble. We wish to thank you for your continued support for the Richmond Singers choirs, the Arts and Culture Grant from the city, the Gaming Grant from the province, and our choral membership fees managed to pay for the funding contracts for our extremely talented artistic director, Fabiana Katz, and our two talented accompanists, Elizabeth O. and Cindy McPherson, as our ensemble accompanist. Fundraising, community sponsors, and donors fund new music, rehearsal space, workshops, insurance, etc., and to save for special events. As a choir, we survived COVID thanks to your support, and we spent that time focusing inward with many workshops, sometimes over the Zoom platform, singing from our own homes. Through this hard work, we improved our musicality and our sound. We professionally recorded our concerts for the past few years and sent a selection of those songs to apply to the Powell River Academy's international biannual choral event, Kathalamu, which was held July the 1st to the 5th, 2025. And we were successful. We attended 32 singers, our director, our accompanist, and a percussionist. We had set money aside for our special events under restricted funds from our financial statements for several years, and were able to pay for a bus, the ferry rides, our professional fees to attend. Our members contribute over $30,000 towards the registration and the accommodation. During our week in Powell River, we had 4 opportunities to sing our own repertoire, paired with other international choirs. In addition to singing several different languages, a portion of our songs included showcasing Canadian composers. Dr. Larry Nicol and Catriona Gimon from BC, a BC song by Cheryl Sarah Papakan from Little River Cree Nation in Alberta, and across the country, a song written by Robbie Smith from Nova Scotia. In addition to these concerts, we rehearsed new songs chosen by the Academy and participated in 4 mass concerts with over 700 singers from around the world. International choirs from as far away as Taiwan, Slovenia, Costa Rica, New Zealand, Philippines, parts of the US, and Canada. Many choirs performed their own traditional folk music as well as a variety of other music forms. It was a wonderful, unforgettable cultural experience. 8 concerts in 5 days. Closer to home, we sang a joint concert with the Vancouver Welshmen's Choir, participated in a charity concert, Richmond Sings, both at the Fraserview Church in April, and then in preparation for Kathalamu, we performed our own spring concert on May the 31st at Broadmoor Baptist Church. The Richmond Singers Ensemble Outreach Program performed 32 sing-outs at senior facilities this past year, and our special ensemble accompanist, Cindy McPherson, also makes a personal effort to attend and play the piano at monthly birthday celebrations at Rosewood Manor. In the fall, we will host an open rehearsal during Richmond Cultural Days and a traditional Christmas concert November 28th and 29th at Broadmoor Baptist. The ensemble will perform their annual free concert December 3rd at Gilmore Park United for seniors in the community. Later in December, we look forward to participating in the city's Steveston Hayrides and the Songs in the Snow. We would like to publicly thank you and the staff at the Richmond Cultural Center, as well as our community sponsors and donors, and our faithful audience for their continued support. Thank you on behalf of the Richmond Singers and the Richmond Singers Ensemble.
Thank you very much for coming and letting us know of your great success. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next delegation is Jamie Gusto, General Manager of the Steveston Harbor Authority, and Robert Kiesman, Board Chairman, to provide an update on Steveston Harbor Authority operations. Welcome, folks. Hi. Have a seat, and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us. We're pleased to be here to give you another update on our action at Steveston Harbor. Most of you will be aware that we've been working for over 10 years now to aggregate all the fishing businesses that we can in the Lower Mainland into one area here in Steveston. Why are we doing that? Because of the increase in property values all over Vancouver is making it impossible and difficult for these businesses to operate. So we have economies of scale going on in Steveston. We have publicly owned infrastructure. We're trying to get all of these different companies to share it, the docks, the ice plant, and so on. to save money, all in a nonprofit context. So thus far, over the last 10 or 12 years, we've got $55 million in capital projects, and I know the city's been involved in some of those with us. A $10 million ice plant, fish processors, plastic recycling, and so on. One of the more exciting projects we completed recently is this crab processing facility in our old ice plant. They are now fully operational, processing crab and soon to be prawns. The project was funded by the company itself. No government money or harbor money went into it to speak of. So this is a very exciting project and only being made possible because it is public property. This would probably not be viable on private property the way the property values are going outside of Vancouver.
Hi, everyone. People are now coming to us. They have nowhere else to go. And we're seeing companies like North Seafoods wanting to expand greater on-site. We are planning in the next couple of years for an exciting expansion. They want to expand into high-value species, including salmon, tuna, black cod, shellfish, sea urchin, sea cucumber, gooey duck, halibut, and lobster in our Paramount building. They are planning to spend $1.4 million, self-funded again, and it will feature live tanks, enhanced unloading facilities, and styrofoam production to support seafood shipping. This is a year-round activity. The facility would operate year-round, creating 60 local jobs.
And one of the next projects that we're working on is improving our unloading facility at 7th Avenue. Many of you will be aware that we've been unloading, Oceanside Seafoods has been unloading fish at 7th Avenue for about 30 years, several million pounds a year, and we're now working on upgrading the facility at 7th Avenue to accommodate the Stephen Seafood Auction Company and Canadian Fish, who is, you're probably aware, not being able to operate in certain other areas in the Lower Mainland right now. So they, again, like these other companies, have nowhere else to go and want to come and share the infrastructure with these other companies in Steveston. You can probably imagine that getting one of the largest fishing companies in Canada to share a facility like this with a tiny company like the Seafood Auction was a difficult thing, but it's happening because it needs to happen. There's no other options. We're working on partnering on this capital project with the Musqueam Indian Band, but it will be primarily Steveston Harbor led.
So our board back in 2014 prioritized property cleanup and public engagement as a key board directive, and we've taken a lot of steps. We recently paved the Chatham Street parking lot, upgraded the lighting, put in some EV chargers, and clean power supply for film production companies, which will reduce the noise there. Over the last 7 years, we've painted all 45 of our buildings through a comprehensive painting program, and we formed a public art committee which has resulted in the commissioning of 7 murals in Steveston, 2 of which receive funding through the city's mural program. Thank you so much. And most recently, we partnered with Tourism Richmond to educate the public about today's fishery. Fisher's Walk, it's a 10-stop interpretive walk featuring informative panels which tell the story of today's fisher, the gear, the vessels, the species they catch, and the lives they live. And dredging. As everyone is aware, we secured a total of $8.5 million through a 4-way partnership between SHA, the City of Richmond, the Province of BC, and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to support the dredging of Cannery Channel. So an initial 11,000 cubic meters of material was removed in February. Dredging resumed on July 21st after the seasonal closure, and it will continue up until February 2026 when the season closes again. We thank the City of Richmond for supporting harbor operations by providing funding for dredging.
And again, want to thank the City of Richmond also for working so closely with us to get federal funding for that project. It was the first time, you'll recall, since 1998 that the federal government put money in, even though it's their harbor. So we do thank you for that. We want to continue having open communications with you, and we thank you for this opportunity, and we're open and happy to speak to you with any questions anytime about what's going on at the harbor.
Thank you both for coming and making a very interesting presentation. We do have a question from Councillor Galanders.
Thank you. Thank you for updating us. Very exciting things happening. So about the dredging, with this recent dredging that was just done, has that got us through the most critical part of it, or is it going to be still critical all the way till next July? And then after next July, how long is that going to last?
Okay, so 11,000 cubic meters, it sounds like a lot, but it's not too much. So from now until about October, we're going to be taking out our biggest problem area.
Yeah.
And then we're tendering out the second and third phase of dredging in the next couple of months, and then we'll just continue on the program until we're all the way down.
And then once it's already done, how long before we're going to be fighting to get more funding? I know we need consistent, regular funding, but
We do need consistent, regular funding, and we are working closely with city staff to come up with different plans to solve this problem, because nobody more than me wants to solve this problem. I'm tired of begging people for money.
One other thing, if I could jump in on this as well, is this is not just a matter of more money and throwing money at this problem. There are some very ridiculous federal regulations in place that require us to spend way more money than we need to. We could probably shave off $2 or $3 million on this $8.5 million if we pulled back on some of these regulations that really do nothing to improve anything. Some people just think they do, but they don't. So that would be something we should probably work on together to get the message out on that.
Great. Thanks for your insights on that. Thank you for everything you do.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. If you could just highlight a little bit on your clean power supply for film production company item, just perhaps like where it is, maybe if our staff could come observe, and when we're doing things like works yard expansion and park expansion, that maybe we follow a similar path. What really led you to do that? Was it pollution, noise, all the above? Could you highlight a little bit more on that? Thanks.
It was pollution and noise. We really wanted to improve that. When film production companies come onto Chatham Street, they bring these diesel generators, and it's really loud and it's really bad for the environment. We got a very small grant from Creative BC. I think it was about $5,000, but the board of directors really stepped up and wanted to make, do right by Easton residents and do the right thing. And we have worked with the city. They are aware of the clean power.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. We'll continue to work with you, I'm sure.
Thank you.
And the third presentation or delegation is Angela Marie McDougall, Executive Director of Battered Women's Support Services, etc. Please have a seat, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I know I'm a late addition, and you've been dealing with so many urgent challenges, of course, here in Richmond, and I'm here to speak about a different kind of crisis. And it's one that cuts through every neighborhood and home in this city. One that just became tragically undeniable. In early June 2025, I reached out to this council to begin a conversation about gender-based violence. I didn't know then that a few weeks later, on July 18th, a woman would be killed here in Richmond by her intimate partner. May she rest in power. With this killing, Richmond joins Abbotsford, Kelowna, Surrey, and Vancouver, where 5 women were killed by someone that they knew in acts of intimate partner homicide within a period of 3 weeks. But I do know that the risk is rising, and local governments have a really important role in addressing what is often considered private, but it is a public safety crisis. My name is Angela Marie McDougall, and I work at Battered Women's Support Services with an incredible team that's based in Metro Vancouver. And we've been on the front line of ending gender-based violence in terms of services, prevention, and intervention for over 45 years. And last year alone, we responded to over 52,000 requests for services. Approximately 2,500 of those came from residents of Richmond. We are so grateful to work alongside Chimo Community Services and have been doing that for our all of these years. And we're so grateful for the critical work that they do. And of course, there's no single organization, no matter how committed, that can address this crisis alone. And that gender-based violence is not a private tragedy. It is, as I said earlier, a public safety failure, and it's costing women their lives. What happened in Richmond is part of a larger national problem, that women have been killed by men that they know, often when they're attempting to leave and to find safety, which we know is one of the risk factors. And while overall homicide rates in Canada have been declining, which is wonderful, it speaks to some of the incredible changes that we've made as a society over the years, killings of women have increased. And they've increased from 2024 from 32 to 42% of all homicides are women currently. And Richmond, of course, is one example. The killing of the woman on the 18th of July is one example of that. So these aren't isolated incidents, rather they are predictable, and we think that they are preventable. And we think that there is an important pattern here in Richmond and a role for this government to join the federal and the provincial governments in taking action. We know that the Prime Minister is being urged to take action, and certainly our Premier and the public safety ministers federally and provincially are asked to take action, and there are interventions that are coming forward in terms of law reform and other actions, but municipalities have largely been left out of this. And we think it's really important that municipalities have a conversation about gender-based violence and begin to center that, because despite the fact that frontline preventions exist, there is a really important role in your jurisdiction for you, if I may be respectfully suggest. And that cities really should join federal and provincial governments in responding to this matter. So I'm here today to urge Richmond to convene a task force on gender-based violence in recognition, certainly, of the woman that was killed on July 18th, but for the thousands that we know that are living here in Richmond right now and living in fear, and a significant percentage of those we can anticipate are living with the threat of lethal violence, just based on what we know in terms of those stats. So this council already leads in so many important key areas, and public safety being one of those. This task force could build on the leadership that this council already has, and sending a clear message that Richmond cares about ending gender-based violence and providing supports. And there's so much that I think that this council could do through a task force that would mean a lot for this issue that often, because it's considered private, doesn't get the kind of attention that needs to happen from local governments who are on the ground. And we see how nimble you are in responding to all of the things that were here today. And I really appreciated hearing from all of the presentations today, and of course the comments from council and mayor. So I'm hoping that Richmond will take this crisis seriously and refuse to treat gender-based violence as inevitable and something for other governments to take up. So thank you for taking space for this conversation. And I welcome the opportunity to work with council and staff.
All right. Councillor Heed, you have a question?
Yes, I do. First of all, I'd like to thank Ms. McDougall for coming forward. I've known her for a period of time and appreciate all the work that your society does in this area. And, you know, again, some of the statistics, I didn't know the statistics had gone up to what that is from what I had. So, Mayor, I'll be making a referral with respect to this when it's appropriate.
All right. Councillor Liu.
Thank you for coming forward, and thank you for coming and speaking to us. And yeah, I agree that perhaps we can do something with a task force. I'm wondering what types of things do you expect to come out of the task force?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question, Councillor Liu. One of the biggest things I think is really important is when local governments decide that this issue, again, because it's considered private, decide that this is something that matters, it sends a message to the community, to those victims, but also to those that are doing harm, that not on our watch, and that we care. And so that is a huge statement. And it's remarkable to think that for so long, Richmond has not made that statement and could. So that's a big step. Another step is in looking at what are the gaps? Where are the gaps in intervention, in prevention? What is needed to respond to this issue so that council's aware? And it gives an opportunity to link with the groups that are already doing the work, but to do it in a way that is based on what this council thinks is important. So bringing people together to have a conversation about it that are doing the work. And of course, the organization I work for is here to stand side by side.
Okay, thank you. And I guess there's an educational piece, supporting the educational piece about it to, warn women, girls about the types of people that do this particularly, or to recognize the signs of someone who's excessively controlling or always has to have their own way, or, always needs to be the center of attention and then lashes out at you when they can't. And if they do it in public, if they're doing it to men, they're probably going to do it to you in private, and they're probably going to escalate at some point. So watching out for guys like that and staying away from them. So I agree. I think there's probably a lot we can do supporting some educational programs. So thank you.
I would like to ask, obviously this is an important subject, but we've got the Chimo Resource Center with its crisis line and all its programs, which the city supports. We've got the Nova House for women fleeing violence. We've got the Women's Resource Center. We've got Harbor House that is now open at Steveston and Railway. From your remarks, I would have thought Richmond was doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. So the services that are here in Richmond are exceptional and necessary. And it might surprise you that many people aren't aware of those services. And that's part of what a task force can do, is to make awareness available, so that where the services are and what they provide is one thing. A lot has to do, we know that any time that a victim has access to a frontline support, it really does prevent the potential for lethal violence. There's so many things that a victim in accessing support can do once they have that information, but we have to understand that victims are isolated. That's one of the really primary functions of an abusive relationship, is to isolate and to prevent access.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. We'll excuse you now. Councillor Heed, do you want to make a referral of this matter to staff?
Yes, I just want to make a comment and then make a referral. And Mayor, we're doing a lot here in Richmond, yes, but a lot of that's viewed as reactive. And I think we've got to twist it around and be more proactive. Like Ms. McDougall brought up a very important point of the education piece of it. And since the recent tragedies where we've had 5 people in the last 6 weeks murdered as a result of gender-based violence, people have reached out to me regarding the educational piece and how important that is to go into our youth at a very, very young age, so we can look at it. So part of this referral, and I'll just read as I wrote this down, referral to staff to examine what we can do as a local government to deal with gender-based violence, and that the mayor write a letter to the Prime Minister and Premier calling on their government to take immediate steps to address this crisis.
No, the second part of writing the letter, we need to have the referral to get the remarks of staff and decide what, then we may want to write a letter.
Well, I think it's, Mayor, if you choose to do that, I certainly will, follow you on that. But I just want to point out is, I think we know what the problem is. And there's no more tragic reminder than what we saw here in Richmond recently, too. So, I'm expecting, or would hope, that staff would get back to us in a short period of time, Mayor, so you can take it upon your authority to write that letter. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is to refer this matter to staff to review the situation and give us options.
Second.
Okay, so it's moved and it's seconded. I have to say, though, that if we do anything, we're going to be using, as far as I'm concerned, we'll use local agencies to the extent we can. because we got some very talented organizations and we provide funds for them and we support them in many ways throughout the year, and they are from Richmond. So I think that is going to be an important facet. So we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. May I have a motion to rise and report? So moved. All those in favor, opposed, carried. May I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. We are now adjourned.